then we'll just keep it as is.
You're giving me or I'm
Anyway, there's a couple of things that I gotta write down and give to you.
And as
Do we have increases in our population?
we're still finding.
All right, I'm going to bring
We're
the
manipulating.
SVSU
We're now sorting out the data we have.
regular meeting to order at 6:30 on Thursday, June 20th. This is not, did I say regular? I meant special. This is a special meeting of the SVSU. We've had a lot of business in the last couple months on many meetings. We will also have a regular meeting next Wednesday. I'm going to rearrange the agenda just slightly. We will do the report or public comments. There's no presentation. The superintendent's report on the Greater Bennington Economic Strategic Planning. We will not do the personnel. Cindy is not doing particularly well. We'll do the budget stat reports. I'm going to pull D for the next meeting. The Bennington Valley contract update for the last couple of years. We will have this action item under finance, and we also need to approve the SVSU budget with the reduction that happened for BSD's third vote, which only impacts the BSD at the bottom line. The SVSU budget is now different. We're going to take off the job description. Catherine will talk about that when we get down there. The consent agenda, I passed out a new consent agenda, and you'll see that under FYI, the B are now added to the consent agenda with nom forms. And then C, that was in response to Jim's eagle eye for not having numbers in the copy that we got. This is so that people can see the actual numbers that were in the contract that was signed. And then we will need an executive session, 2 for personnel items and an ESP negotiations update. So, are there any questions on the agenda?
So you're saying this job description for...
Is put to the side. There'll be a different plan. So we're going to move into the reports. Catherine?
Sure. Many of you will remember the town of Bennington receiving a grant for strategic planning, and they had a Dr. Mullen who came and gave some consultation on how to develop that strategic plan. There was a committee formed called the task force, which had a number of individuals representing various organizations and other town committees that came together to work on the strategic plan. Our participation as a supervisory union and as individual boards, that would be the BSD board and the MAU board and the SVSU board, had early participation when Ken Swearad, as chair of the BSD board, and Sean Marie Oler, as chair of the SU and MAU boards, joined that task force in their very early meetings as a school and public school presence. I followed along, continuing to attend those meetings and work with the group on the strategic plan. I keep calling it the Greater Bennington Strategic Plan because it's mostly focused on looking at how we can work together to build a stronger community and region through workforce development, economic development, and it also ties very closely because many of these committee members on this task force overlap with those committees that were formulated from the rural development visit that identified areas of importance for development in the region. There was one on poverty, one on image. So those overlap. But the organizations that are involved in this task force early on, it's now called Development Partners, are the Better Bennington Corporation, the Bennington County Regional Commission, the CDC, the Vermont Small Business Development Corporation, the Bennington Chamber of Commerce, the Town of Bennington, Mike Harrington and Dan Monks attend, the Vermont Business Development, Community College of Vermont, the Select Board, Sharon and Tom Jacobs have been attending, the Bennington Young Professionals, the Department of Labor, and then there's some industry representation, the Bennington County Industrial Corporation, and there are the Medical Center and some individual industry representatives. And they've been working all year on the strategic plan. What I'd like to do is give it out to you so that you can look at it. We have committed as a partner in this, but I would like you to look at the plan and note particularly the educational pieces of the plan. One objective and goal is one of our own, which is to increase the graduation rate, and the other is to support the pilot program in mathematics at the Mount Anthony High School. This is a program that Katie Schoenbach has developed with her mathematics department, and it is a math after fact, which is an after-school math support program, and a tutoring program within the school day for mathematics students to help them move in tracks so that they can move from one level of instruction into higher levels of instruction. It's been very, very successful, and this group really sees that mathematics movement into higher mathematics coursework as a strong foundation for workforce development. Also, the mathematics department at Mount Anthony High School has followed on our opening of school this year when we invited the town, business, industry, government, and nonprofits in to meet with teachers. They have followed up with visitations to different industries and have been very welcomed, learned a lot, and they're hoping that the science department and other, well, aren't hoping, the science department has followed suit. So I think it's a good plan for the region, and it brings us all together in a common focus. There's also been an invitation, mutually provided invitation, to have Ken Swearad and Sean Marie as the board chairs most related to Bennington, to meet with Mike Harrington, who's the Economic and Community Development Officer for the town of Bennington, and members of the Select Board, to start to look at how we can work more closely together and have better communication. I won't say better, just more structured communication, because there's really no structure in the state of Vermont that formalizes the communication between the Select Board and the school boards. So this is a way to open that. So I give you this report for your study before the next meeting, and we can put a discussion item, and I'd welcome any comments through email to me from individuals that would like to just comment, any questions, concerns, and we will have a group come to talk about it at a later date, and we will be asked to bring representation to the Select Board when quarterly reports are made on progress. So there's actually a timeline of goal achievement that will be looked at.
Has Sue participated in this? I know that she was contacted at some point for the graduation rate.
Yeah, she has participated through Katie Schoenbach's participation.
Great. Any questions? Comments? Thank you, Catherine. I'm having a hard time with this new agenda format. So I'm going to go to the SVSU budget stat report and ask Rick to tie it together with the, if people have questions on that, and also with the action item on the supplemental direct and proportional assessments for special ed. But what I would like to say before we go there is that in talking to Rick today, I realized it's been many years since we've done a kind of board retreat / meeting where the finance department goes over what those codes and accounts mean, what it means to transfer. I talked to Rick about next fiscal year, about preparing transfer reports in the SU to the board once a month so they understand where the money's being transferred around in the budget. Add to that some of our hiring practices. I think some of the boards, we don't always know what the hiring practices are. And then one of the things that comes up is if we negotiate contracts, and George has been a big proponent of saying people need to know the contract. So we'll tie all of this together with somebody maybe who negotiated the contract, or Catherine or Donna, somebody or people who are very familiar with the contract, to go through the contract, not to the level that a principal might be shown a contract. So I think all of that is what I would like to look forward to for the new fiscal year. And I'm going to add at this point that Jim O'Connor talked to me about what I thought was a great idea about delegating different people each month to look at a different area of the packet. It's a large packet. There's a lot in there. There's warrants. There's we meet once a month, so there's all these things on the consent agenda, and we could try having 2 or 3 people review some of it and then ask the questions. And obviously, everybody's free to look at anything they want. I mean, that's what the packet is for. But Jim thought it might be a way to, I don't know how we even came to that, but I thought it was certainly worth a try.
What I suggested was actually the chair appointing every month 1 or 2 persons per, especially with the warrants, to really look at the warrants or anything that has a lot of detail in it. When the packet goes out, to assign a couple of people to look at it and then advise the board if there's any issues.
Well, and I think too that a monthly transfer sheet might help people understand where money's going as well. And then, of course, there's often a lot of nominations to look through. So, having said that, I will turn it over to Rick on, well, I guess if there's any questions about the budget status report, people can ask now, or they can ask questions under this next topic. Rick? Oh, Claude.
Yeah, I did go online to read the status report, and I only got to page 15.
So didn't I.
There's no total.
We were missing a number of pages.
That's what I thought, okay.
Well, in fact, I printed it out, and I was looking with Rick today, and he's like, "You're missing a few pages here."
So that's, okay.
We'll make sure they're up to
So that's something somebody would have caught, right?
Claude did catch.
Claude did.
Well, I try to read what I try to read what you give me. You don't give me enough time to read it.
Yeah, I apologize. There's a number of people that can produce this report. I don't know who did, and of course, when it was scanned in, someone could have, a whole host of reasons.
Yeah, we'll check on it. We've had this before.
I'm not sure, and I don't, well, actually, I could probably tell. It was printed a couple of days ago, so it's fairly current. But when the conversation was asked of me, I thought it was going to go at the next meeting, so I was kind of surprised when Claude told me that it was on this one. But
Well, and as did I. But I think what the plan was is that we were going to do them every 2 weeks, and I signed one on the 12th, so that was what should have been in there, but I think we ran another one.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do apologize. You only have about half the document that is pertinent to the conversations, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions anybody may have on what they have.
Do
Go ahead.
ask questions on it?
Yeah.
I have reviewed this, and one of the items that I think the board has to look at, and that I'm seriously concerned with, is the amount of money that we're paying on legal fees. And if we continue going the way we're going, I think we've got some real serious problems here. And I take a look at that total amount of money. So are we on course for what it ought to be for legal services? And we haven't even started teacher negotiations. This is a staggering bill that we're looking at tonight.
It is.
But is there someone else that's,
Well, Kathy can answer that.
is anybody else concerned about it, or am I the only one?
Concerned about it. All of
Yeah,
us,
so
all
what
of us
can
are
we,
concerned.
I guess what I'm saying is there something we can do to curb legal expenses and fast?
What, and I can give a report, a breakout on the different facets of that now. In fact, I think we've been asked to prepare that, and I will do that, certainly with the finance department, with Rick and others. I think what we have to remember about this year is that we've had a number of personnel issues that have been very, very complex. And we have been using labor attorneys to do some of the work that an HR person would be able to provide as preliminary work so that they would be used as. We did have 2 negotiations this year. We had administrative CBA and the ESP. And both of those have been successful. We've had just trying to think, we've had each individual, not each individual district, but we've had, and these have not been extraordinary costs, but for example, there was a separate billing for the Oak Hill at Pownell that had to happen. So those are the
MAU, which we haven't met in a while, but MAU had a due
Personnel.
process hearing.
Yes.
And that was $16,000 just for that hearing.
We had 2 due process hearings this year.
Right. There were, and I think those are the things that, I say this not cavalierly, but it's somewhat of the cost of doing business when that comes up.
I brought up an item before pertaining to this, to leave this alone. Would it behoove us to, at least at the end of whatever contract we're under with lawyers, is there not someone in the Bennington area, is there not some law firm that would not be willing to take these cases on and handle it and be able to, I just find it.
Well, I think I could clarify a little about travel. They do not charge us for the time of their travel. So
No,
we're not paying.
But away from that, I mean.
Oh, okay.
that's a
I
lot
didn't know if you had that
We're spending a lot of
concern.
money. Couldn't we keep some?
So what happens is, and just, I know you've been on the board maybe 4 years, 5 years. So I believe this contract is actually coming to an end, and we went out to bid. And Rick put out an RFP, 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Contract actually ended a couple of years ago, and superintendent has chosen not to go out to bid until issues have been resolved.
So we will be going out to bid maybe next year, or this
As
fiscal
soon as I'm
year.
told to put it out to bid, I'll put it out to bid.
So they've been holding, I'm assuming that they've been holding the same costs
Correct.
to us,
Yeah.
which were
Right.
pretty reasonable.
And some are at no, there are charges that they do not charge us for. You'll see some segment in the bill that will say no charge. Sometimes they give us a third of the rate for whatever reason, if they're researching a series of communications, something like that. But I think it would be helpful to have a total report of the breakout for this year particularly, because, and I have started that, and I appreciate what Rick said about keeping the same firm on with due process and personnel issues, but certainly it should go out to bid.
So that leads nicely into your,
Yeah, I'm assuming we're on 4A.
You're,
Yes.
And that item isn't necessarily descriptive of what exactly I'm looking for, so I'll have to walk you through it a little bit. I've talked to every board with the exception of Mount Anthony because they haven't met recently.
that's because the rest of you are meeting.
Thank you.
And there needs to be some supplemental assessments in FY13. Let's do the easy one first. Go over to the middle of the page, the resource rooms, both elementary and secondary. I've spoken to, again, all the boards with the exception of Mount Anthony. This is my forecasted deficit for each of those rooms. Those are district-specific expenses. So what is spent in one district is paid for by one district. It is not shared on a per-pupil basis. All the boards, with the exception of Mount Anthony, which I haven't been to, have authorized me to bill them for that, since it is directly their expense. I just am going to need officially SVSU action. On the Mount Anthony case, I would assume we would have a separate motion that, subject to Mount Anthony's understanding and approval, that will issue them an assessment for that. I don't know why they wouldn't want to pay it this year, but they got to pay it one way or the other, as all the other districts do. But it is somewhat of an option to pay me now or pay me later. You will all be getting your reimbursement on these expenses this year, so it makes sense to pay for the expense this year rather than try to split them, and all the boards have come to that understanding. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions on that one piece first. Woodford doesn't have a supplemental assessment here because their sped students dropped significantly in FY13, and their expenses have been significantly less,
That's correct.
if anybody was curious.
Summary.
Yes.
Is this that 50,000 that you mentioned at the last meeting? And now it's 100,000?
No, the one we're talking about right now is the 60 in the middle for BSD.
Right.
That's for the resource room.
That's in addition to what we agreed to last?
No,
No.
that's what you agreed to
That
last.
that was 60? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Rick, on Shasberry's, the 15,000, I thought that was 10,000, but is that in addition to the 10?
No, that was, you increased a special ed para, and then there was another $6,000 in
Oh, okay.
I think it was OT or something.
Yeah, you're right.
I forget
Okay,
that.
all right. Gotcha.
Now, Rick, in the administrative services line, I see this total for 158. In looking through the budget stat report, there's overages in transportation, workman's comp, different other areas. There's other areas, some of the contracted services that weren't spent down. So how does this, how does it balance out for the bottom line? Are you saying, I guess what I read by this, and maybe I'm incorrect, is that that we need to spend another 158,000 at the SU level and the elementary levels at 140 and the secondary at 175.
For a total. You're looking with the total.
I don't know what you mean by that. You don't have to spend that much money. That's what I'm forecasting the deficit to be in those assessment streams.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is, you're saying that there will be absolutely no fund balance? Will be at 158 minus That's what I guess I'm confused
Well,
about.
some of these other assessment streams will be fine. There'll either be a break even or there might be a surplus in those assessment streams. But the administrative assessment stream, because of the significant legal and personnel costs that have or are going to hit there between now and June 30th, I am projecting a deficit of $158,000. If you look down below the grid where the dollars are and you see, the 2212, 2220, 2320, there's a number of functions that make up that administrative assessment stream. And I need to keep those dollars true to those assessment streams because that's how they're billed and that's how we receive the cash in and that's how we account for those expenses.
I guess I'm sorry, because I'm looking at it in a more global view, that if you look at the budget, if you look at the budget stat report, there's X amount percent left. So I understand that you're talking about just this specific codes, these 2212, 22. But what happens when there's a healthcare line that we built in at 60,000 and we only spend 40? I mean,
If it's in that assessment stream, I've netted it out of that number. If it's in the technology assessment stream, that is a fund balance that'll carry in the technology assessment.
so if you were to look at any of the more recent budget stat reports, you would see that we are under budgeted in almost every workman's comp line. So where's the money going to come to cover the workman's comp deficit?
Well, it would come largely from under-expended lines within that same function or within that assessment stream. If I do not have enough money for that, then I'd be asking for a supplemental assessment. It's the only area that are of concern is the administrative assessment and the special ed assessments.
Okay. So, go ahead, Claude.
Well, if the report on line C, report number 3, that we didn't get the full packet of,
Okay.
how can you generate this without that?
Well, I can't.
Right. So where would this show up on that report if we had the full packet?
It would show up in, actually, probably the assessment stream is there, because you got the first half of this. So if you're looking at page 3 of that report, you see the first section there of the function, which is your fourth set of digits, 2212. About a third of the way down, you see function curriculum 2212. That has a total of $67,800 to the good. Then that technology general of 2229 is also in the assessment stream. The treasurer's 2313 is in the assessment stream.
So,
Administration of 2320 is in the assessment stream. So you can go down and you can find all those. What you're not going to see here is all of the work that my staff has been doing to correct funding that will soon be charged to the administrative salary line because I am unable to keep it where it was originally charged.
So I'm looking at the report that was run on June 12th, where it's a budget stat report where the balance is 1 million, which is 8%, and there's an encumbrance of $500,000. So I guess that's the part that I'm still confused at. If we, like I noticed here if you look at the top page, administrative salaries on like page 2, the budget was 603,000, and we've transferred out 134,000. So that 134,000 went somewhere, I'm assuming assuming in, like 90,000 was transferred into legal, 14 into contracted service, and I'm just, again, I'm a little confused. I don't have a problem with saying we might be over this much, but I guess I'm thinking that if we've budgeted in other areas, like admin health at 111,000, we transferred out 43,000 somewhere. I guess, you know, if we had so instead of transferring this from the current budget, what you're asking is for us to agree to bill out aside from the direct services, you're asking us to approve spending $158,000 more than we've already approved a year ago.
I'm advising you that your administrative assessment stream is going to have a deficit of $158,000, and it is the board's prerogative, if they choose to fill that deficit with a supplemental assessment to its member districts. That's the only way they can fill that deficit.
So we can't transfer it from someplace else in the budget, is that what you're saying?
You could. I haven't done the analysis to see if, you know, where those budget items are. I don't know which, on June 12th, what the encumbrances were. You know, there was a big payday today.
Today, yeah.
That, you know, a lot of lump checks went out. So you know, based on my current forecast, that's what I'm projecting.
I guess I'm going to ask one last question to try and clarify this for me. So if we approve this, we're approving billing the districts more. And then when the audit starts after June 30th and there's a fund balance, I would assume, since we're asking to spend 150,000 more, that in fact there would be no fund balance.
You've already spent it. You're not authorizing the expenditures. They've already been spent.
Right.
Jim?
Which is why we're anticipating.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last night in Powell, Rick was there, and as far as our 57,000, they presented us with a list of debits and credits of just what you're saying, moving the money back and forth to cover this surprise $45,000 and this $12,000. So going into the meeting last night, I thought we had a lot of money left over I was hopefully going to spend it on pre-K, okay, but it didn't work out. So I'll just pass this down to you. This is what Rick gave us last night, I think. Can we do the same thing here? Just do
We
all
can.
debits and credits?
We can.
He's saying we can, so that's what you're asking.
I think I'm kind of asking the same thing Jim is. Rick, at the end of the year, there's certain accounts that have some money left over.
Yeah.
Does your projection show that there might be enough to substantially reduce this request for additional assessment?
I wouldn't be here if there was. I'd be asking I would be asking for the board to consider moving, you know, 50,000. It's a different conversation, but 50,000 out of technology, for example, to move into the administrative assessment stream to cover this expenditure. There isn't going to be a whole lot of money. We've been burning fund balance for the last couple of years. And
So what kind of a motion do we need, since other boards have already done this?
Ray has a question. Ray.
Oh, Ray?
Well, I'd like to see something that summarizes, that shows this 158, instead of having to wander through this budget status document. And I guess I want what Jim asked for, which is the pluses and minuses, and of all possible sorts that could cover this. There are certain things, obviously, we can't shift money from the direct sped budget. Can we do that by next week and have a vote then?
I don't think so. You think so?
no,
At least to date.
it'll be tough. It'll be
Yeah,
tight.
That's what I
but,
would say, be tough.
You know, it's, I'll be more than happy to give you that detail if that's what you're looking for.
But you still, I mean, I understand about the detail, obviously, I've been asking these questions, but it seems that you're gonna be writing more checks between now and the 26th, so you'd like,
Well, it's not only more checks. I mean, you know, for example, there's been a lot of salary and benefits charged to special ed administration that have to take a journal entry to move those charges to general administration because they don't qualify for sped reimbursement. And I can't have anything in that line item that does not qualify for reimbursement. So I need to move those charges to general admin because there's nowhere else to put them. And that's going to force this line item, this assessment, to be overspent.
so what was the motion that you made at the other boards?
Well, the other boards were a little different because they
Different,
were just basically saying that, you know, our special ed services are overspent and we're willing to pay that bill this year. What I'm looking for from this board is a motion to authorize or to assess a supplemental assessment, or for whatever that's got, bill a supplemental assessment, whatever the correct language is, as presented, subject to Mount Anthony authorizing, you know, their assessment for special ed services, because they haven't seen it yet. But, or something less than that if the board so chooses.
So, I mean, just on a side note, what you're asking for from this board is the first column.
Well, technically, I need a second. I mean, they've all said, yeah, we'll take the bill, but technically, I need authority from the SU board to send the bill out.
And these resource room columns are, for the most part, reimbursable.
Correct.
And some of the administrative services are, but not all.
That's not true. The SPED administration, which is to the right of the resource room, is reimbursable. The administrative column you see there is not reimbursable. I was forced to move from the SPED education admin over.
Oh, it's over, to the right, okay.
That was moved into the administrative services?
Correct.
Because it wouldn't qualify for reimbursement?
Correct.
I guess,
Or it will be. It hasn't physically done
yeah,
yet.
I got you. I guess I'm confused enough about this. I'd like to see it in a paper format, which I don't have because it's just on my computer. And maybe I'm unwilling to vote on it now myself.
So you would vote no if there was a motion on the floor. Peter?
Was there?
Excuse me?
There is a motion?
No, I said if there was a motion on the
Yes.
floor, you would be voting no.
Yes.
Peter?
Since MAU has not talked about this whole thing, I don't think it is fair to MAU to bring this up and ask them to accept what everybody else is possibly agreeing to, whatever the vote is on this. The thing that bothers me is that supplemental budgets only for SVSU pass the buck to the other districts. Where are we going to get the money from? You know, do we go back to the voters and say we need a supplemental budget? We need more money? Do we have to take it out of other programs to pay for this?
Yes.
It's not sitting very well with me, and I don't think it's right to make a motion, take a vote tonight to pass this on when MAU has not discussed it.
Well, can we separate the, we can separate out the 158. Because the 158 has to be paid.
They've already been paid.
You don't have to do anything.
Jim?
You can deficit spend.
A question to Rick, I think might clarify this. Last night, did Pownell approve to pay the 12,778 when it was
Yes.
presented?
No. They approved the
We
45,000.
approved the 45, not the 12,778. It's more.
The 12, which I estimated was 15 down there.
But we approved to pay 15 then.
No. I just informed you that it was going to be
Coming.
discussed tonight. The only thing you approved was to pay your special ed bill of $45,000.
Okay. That doesn't help. That doesn't help.
See, it's on there, the 15 is on that list.
Well, then we did
No.
cover it, we covered
You
it.
acknowledged it.
We showed that you can cover it, but
I'm not sure what we voted on last night. I thought we voted to transfer all this money over.
you did.
So the money's sitting there waiting for the bill.
It is.
It's like my wife with her jars of money for when the insurance. She does that. She has her piles in her envelopes. It's actually on a computer, but it's.
I can provide you all
So
the...
we've so Pownell is, we expect the bill and we've pre-okayed paying it, I
You've
guess,
prepared
kind of,
for-
sort of.
You've prepared for the bill to come your way.
Yeah, all right, we're waiting. The money's there waiting to come and take it.
And the same with BSD.
Well, BSD didn't have that conversation, they just took,
Well, you
Yeah,
did.
they
they just took the recommendation,
You
face
did.
value.
So would somebody like to make a motion for the 158
Transfer.
with the money, with the paper to come later? Fran?
I just have a question to Rick. Is this the total special ed issue that we've been dealing with, or is there more to come?
I don't believe there is much more.
Because we're looking at almost $500,000.
This is not the total. This is the total that is causing, this is the amount that we didn't have enough money in the budget to cover. I'm not saying this is the total cost of the issue. Did that make sense?
And the money in
Does
the
that make sense?
left-hand column is not reimbursable.
Correct.
So there's things in there like severance and health and other things.
Legal.
Okay. So is anybody willing to make a motion for the 158?
Well, as Pownell's already sort of pre-approved it, I'd go along with approving you to bill us for it. I guess we've already, the consensus in Pownell was to accept the bill when it came, so. So as far as the Pownell portion, I'd be okay in authorizing that.
So you're making the motion for the 158 supplemental bill assessment? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Larry. So is there more discussion on this? Ray, this does not mean that Rick is not going to come with an itemized list like Jim has. I think it's getting close to June 30th, and that's,
I would like to ask
We have to vote for it.
what other options there are.
okay.
The only one I know of is deficit spending, so I assume that's the only other one. I'd like
So
to
is that
know
your
what
question to Rick?
the implication is.
What are the options?
Yeah, it's deficit spending, which will carry over into your FY15 budget. Your SVSU assessments that year would end up being much more expensive than normal inflationary costs. The SU, as it is structured, is unable to borrow money. We can, our cash only comes from the member districts. So it might, I haven't forecasted forward to the cash flow, but it might severely.
That make us technically insolvent?
Could. It might severely curtail expenditures. We get our first assessment in July for next year, which will help, but, if we're in the hole of $500,000, there might be some significant spending that won't take place until the second or third assessment, if at all. We may have to curtail a lot of spending until we can make this up in the Fy14 budget.
Well, all I'm asking is to actually see it in a format that I can understand. At the moment, I don't have a clear conception of it. I'm not distrusting that it exists.
I don't take it that way. I just, would appreciate the opportunity to, a little bit of liberty to, say that my hands have been somewhat hamstrung in this process. And, this is the best I can do with the cards that have been dealt me.
So there's a motion, Avis. I'm sitting here listening to the feedback from my fellow members. This was briefly discussed, the Woodford amount, at a special meeting last night. However, we did not vote on it. What was not available to us at that time, aside from Rick mentioning that there's some heavy expenses involved, was what was going to be put on our fellow boards. Now, when I took my position on this board, I made a private resolution to myself, if you will, that I certainly would not vote willingly on anything that would create problems for Woodford as a district. However, I also said to myself that I need to make every vote with a consideration of how it's going to affect all the other districts. Quite frankly, I am staggered right here, okay? Maybe because Woodford works with a much smaller budget, but I am staggered here. And I personally do not wish to vote on this issue until I have some more time to consider just what it is and get feedback from the other member boards who are being socked. And with all due respect to you, Rick, I realize that you are between the rock and the hard spot here, but I'm very uncomfortable with this and taking a vote on it at this point.
I'm not sure I'm between a rock and a hard spot. I've been on an island for a while. And with all due respect, it's been actions that have been taken over the last few months that has brought us to this point in time. I don't have any problem providing you with the facts and details that I believe.
And I appreciate that, but as I say,
I'm going to stop beating around the bush and I'm going to be straightforward. So this came up, and some of you have mentioned it. This, Rick had brought this to my attention, the full board's attention, in an email. And we had ongoing investigations in the districts for different reasons.
Personnel matters not related to this.
Personnel
Right.
matters.
Related to the costs.
Personnel matters related to the costs of lawyer fees and some of these other now severance fees that are in these columns. And to give an itemized list at the time before those were resolved, I had said to Rick that I did not feel comfortable compromising investigations and personnel matters by putting itemized lists together. The other thing was at the time, there, and I think Rick has even just said, he's just now at the point where he can give you totals, because when we asked about a detailed list at the time in April or May, that detailed list was
But we were still discovering things that needed to be
being
covered.
compiled. So I'm just, I'm going to be honest that, if there's some sort of blame or, putting an island together, one could look at me as saying I was looking out for the personnel and the other matters that were happening in the district and didn't want to compromise one with the other. And I did that as board chair, and certainly Catherine is the superintendent, was fully aware of this conversation. I had Leanne and Cindy there as well. And, we're here now, and I'm sorry that, Rick, you feel like you've been on an island, that you haven't been able to share this, but I'm letting you know where I'm coming from.
Well, and I'll also add that we did bring it as a topic to the board chairs meeting to alert them and let them know. And the discussion at that time was the June meetings, although there wasn't a lot of agreement of when to share it with the boards. Rick's gone ahead and actually given some updates to the boards more recently, which I appreciate. So I think the board chairs, were certainly told that it was coming, that we didn't have the numbers. But.
So, there's a motion and a second on the floor. We can remove it if people feel that it will go down, and we're better off looking at it at the 26th. Peter, then Jim.
Can I request a reading of the motion, please?
Excuse me?
Can I request a reading of the motion, please?
Well,
So that we know exactly what we're talking about.
Well, Jim made the motion. Richard is not here. I can't replay the tape, but I can tell you what I think the motion is to authorize Rick to assess the member districts this $158,000 in the administrative services line.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So now I just framed it for Richard Bump when he watches the tape.
I like that.
Ray?
Don't we have to deal with the specific special ed assessments as well?
Well, I believe the...
Are we doing that separately?
I believe the elementary boards are aware of the cost to them. Peter pointed out that MAU has not discussed this. He did not feel comfortable having the SU board vote on something that was going to be directly billed to Mount Anthony.
But we could vote on the elementary districts.
We could vote on the
because
158.
The elementary districts all know what this is
Correct.
about.
Correct. Is there one for North Bennington?
Yes,
And North Bennington is aware?
yes.
Okay. So the motion is what I just stated on the floor, which was made by Jim and seconded by Larry.
And that's specific to the administrative assessment.
That's specific to the administrative services line, $158,000. Is there more discussion, or do you, if you feel it may go down, it may be more beneficial to pull the motion?
Or if there was an amendment to add the elementary.
Well, I was going to do that separate, or did you want to add that to the, Ray, did you want to amend it to add the elementary, or did you want to make that?
No,
in
I'd
an-
like to separate it out.
Right, that's what I thought he
That's
said.
fine.
Is it
And
appropriate to call the question?
Yes,
So let's just call the question. Vote on the-
so
on the first
those in
part.
favor of calling the question? Say aye.
All right, all right.
All right, so the motion on the floor is, do I need to repeat it? No, right? Do you want me to repeat the motion? No?
Nobody has.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Richard, that's Richard Bump. Opposed? That would, Ray and Peter. So the motion passes to assess the districts at the 158. Rick, you will still bring the itemized list as the board has requested. And then, Ray, would you like to make a motion on the elementary resource room line?
I make a motion that we authorize the business office to bill individual elementary districts for their elementary resource extra expenses for fiscal year 13, to the tune of $140,000 total per schedule.
Is there a second to that? Larry? So that was Ray making the motion, Richard and Larry seconding it. Is there any discussion on this 140, on this total of 140? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Just one general question is, the wording resource room, it's special ed, right?
Yes.
Is that a requirement to call it resource room? It seems like an obfuscation.
Actually, can I answer that?
Yeah.
That's been the terminology for quite some time. And actually, if you look at well, actually, you're going to see it here in a second. We move away from using that word in FY14, that phrase in FY14.
Do we have a new one?
Special ed?
We're calling it Special Education Services.
Thank you.
It's actually more
I'm happy.
accurate.
I am too. So, do we vote on that?
Not yet?
Not yet.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So Richard, that was everybody, and one abstention is Peter. And we will,
Could I request that the board consider the MAU assessment subject to MAU agreeing to
Yeah.
accept the assessment?
sure.
I'll make that motion.
I mean, it's pretty innocuous.
So the motion is to, for the SVSU board to approve assessing the secondary special ed services to MAU, subject to their approval. Ray made that. Is there a second, Larry? Seconded by Larry. This is all for Richard, so he hears names. Any questions? Comments? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. So, do we have another item for you?
I do. Technically, I'm assuming most of the people realize that Bennington passed their budget recently, and part of the reductions that they took were in their
Thank you.
special education services assessment, and to the tune of about $347,000. This assessment stream you're seeing is the same one you approved last time, with the exception of just the BSD change, which is a direct assessment in their special ed services. So just for the auditors to be happy with the bills I sent out, I need this board to approve the new budget, which is only changing BSD's resource room down, as well as the new assessment stream. The new assessment streams that I just passed out. No changes for any other district.
This is FY14 budget.
This is next year, starting July 1.
And this document?
The FY14 budget. The first one I gave you was the assessment stream.
Right.
The second one was the detailed budget, which is going to look exactly the same as you approved a month ago, I think, with the exception of the special ed services for BSD.
So, Larry? Is there a second to accepting this updated budget? George, that's a yes. So that was Larry and George. Any discussion? I think Rick's explained. Any other further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
No, it is not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that opposed or an abstention?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Because this is a revision of the budget and without any consideration for any assessments.
Okay. It does happen to say North Bennington non-operating because this is the
I
non-operating.
don't care.
This
I'm just-
is not operating assessment stream. I just, I just personally, and I apologize to the board for the awkwardness of some of this discussion, but it's not like how I normally like to do business. It's not how I do business, but it's been a tough few months, and, this was the best way that we could deal with the circumstances as they were presented to me. I apologize for your uncomfortableness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you.
It has been.
It has been a stressful year, or at least a stressful second half of the year. A whole year?
Almost.
So we have a
December.
revised consent agenda, and I just want to bring your attention to it. I think Karen might be able to, or Catherine, both. We have the May minutes, the warrants, and under finance, this is, for those of you who may be new, and I looked at the minutes from 2011, I didn't see any in 12. We must have done it in 12, though. What we're actually approving is to be able to submit these two grants, and if you have any questions, I'm sure Catherine or Karen can answer.
Karen and I didn't
Well,
get that. Is there an extra revised one around somewhere?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Here.
Thank you. I think would be important to give an overview of each of these grants. So I'll start, and then if Karen on the IDAB wishes to add some more, you certainly can. The Consolidated Federal Grants, the CFP, is actually the title of the grants that are allocated from the federal government through the state government under the title funding. So it's Title I and Title II. And these allocations are based on the poverty rates of each of the individual towns. The SU becomes the LEA, so their funds are brought together, and we have to spend the strategies down that we develop to improve student achievement. We have to spend them down, or budget them, and then spend them down in what's called targeting and ranking, which is that the most money must be spent at the highest poverty schools and then on a decreasing basis. So our total Title I allocation for the coming year is $2,192,329 for Title I and $210,260 for Title II. Title I services are predominantly services to increase student achievement in mathematics and reading. They pay for reading specialists and for math specialists in the elementary schools and support some of the early education program. They also include under Title II professional development opportunities. We also have what's called set-asides, which mean that we have to set aside a certain amount of this money for supplementary educational services. That is money that is related to providing tutoring for individual students who qualify in poverty definition to get additional tutoring outside our school system at places like the tutorial center or online options. We also have a set-aside for homeless that has to be put aside in proportion to the guidelines of the grant. So most of the money goes to, in Title I, salaries and benefits for 38 full and part-time staff members, including teachers, paraprofessionals at the early ed program, and some administrators for programs and grants. So that total is $2,402,589. Now when we submit the grant, under Rick's leadership, have always been very conservative. We do not ask for the total amount. We usually reserve some out, and we are able to do amendments later. So we're very conservative in how we start, and that also helps us build up a carryover to the next year that can help in the transition from one year to the next on funding levels. The IDEA, I can give the poverty levels of each of the districts if you wanted to write them down. They're done on the October count of last year. Bennington Elementary has the highest poverty rate at 78.5%. Molly Stark at 71.6%. And they move back and forth from year to year depending on the free and reduced applications that come in. Mount Anthony High School and middle school are next, each at 62%. Then Pownell at Pownell comes next, 63.1, and then 62 for the middle and high school. Woodford is at 61. Shaftesbury, let's do Monument next at 41.8, and Shaftesbury at 39.6% poverty.
North Bennington?
North Bennington is not in the target and ranking because they are not eligible for Title I funds. They are not eligible at this point, so they're not in the target and ranking.
And Catherine, could you just mention to this board which supervisory union in the state had the most title allocation?
This past year.
Yeah.
I haven't looked this year, so I don't know. I mean, for next year. This year it was the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union.
So we out of the entire state of SUs received the largest amount of title funds, which
Right. And we tend to vie back and forth with Burlington. Burlington City is one that's at times greater.
So the IDB, the
Well, I think
IDAB,
Larry had a
I'm sorry,
question.
Larry.
Catherine, could you give us something like that document?
In writing, sure.
An educational tool for us?
Yes, absolutely.
Questions about Title I that we find ourselves, I find myself short of the answers. Because I really don't understand how it comes in.
Oh, sure.
And what you just went through is put a lot of that in a usable form, so.
Yeah. And I think that what we've tried to do in the last few years is give more information to the boards about the federal funding, the Medicaid funding, and all of that. So yes, absolutely. For each district, Larry, probably a good idea.
Did you want to mention the IDAB
Yes.
or Karen? Either one of you.
You can go ahead.
I'll start, and Karen can.
I have a question, Catherine.
yes.
One second. That figure you had, 39.8 poverty rate for Shasberry. As of March, that was 43%.
Yeah, we use
So
the
that's-
October.
Oh, okay.
October count.
Okay.
So you may see fluctuations during the year. It doesn't change. They're using the previous year's
Okay.
October
All right.
October count. For IDAB, this is the special ed federal allocation that comes through the state and from the state to us. Right now, we are only asking, because of the transition of not needing to fill the director of special education and the need to make sure that we have funding in and approved for our extended year services, we are really only looking at the months of July and part of August in order to fund. So our initial grant, because IDAB, we can put amendments in continuously. So for this initial submission, which is what you are approving, we are submitting $209,877 for extended year services. These are the services that are given in the summer for students who have had regression in their over vacations or weekends during the year and show that they need that sustained instructional support. It also has in the budget evaluation services, also travel, supplies, equipment, curriculum development, and the payment for our Gold View. So it's
Thank you.
important that we have acceptance to submit both of these grants so that we can, in Title I, some of the Mosaic funds come out of that, and they are used in July, so, as a match. So we need to be able to submit them, and that's what the approval is for.
So, did I ask for a motion on the consent agenda, or did I just say I'd go through it? Well, let's do another motion. Does anybody know if there's a motion on the floor? There's no Richard here.
There was not a
There's no
motion.
motion.
No.
So, is there anything else somebody would like to ask a question on before we ask for a motion on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick?
Don't-
Eric doesn't have his hand
I
up.
thought it was Rick.
And
Fran.
the compensation authorization, the Donna Leap and the Teresa
Pie
Picards?
cars.
Pie cards, okay. That is it 90,000 or it says to be prorated?
Right, her start date in this, because we don't have an assistant superintendent to replace her yet, she'll stay as assistant superintendent through August 9th and then start the director position. The overlap in the summer for these two positions are activities related to professional development, which the assistant superintendent does as well. So, meaning the annual salary would have been, so it'll actually be less, but she will be getting continued salary through the assistant superintendent.
And the second one, Pie Carts, is that
Hourly rate.
paraprofessional
It's an
rate?
administrative assistant
Assistant, okay, all
for
right,
special
I just-
services,
okay.
for student
Yeah, it
services.
does say that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm fine.
And then
Larry has.
Larry?
On that same item, is that salary recommendation in line with what we presently pay our directors?
It's slightly higher because she has more credits and experience. She's been a principal and a superintendent.
She has a PhD.
So it's just over the midpoint in the range. The range goes from 71 to 102. So it's just over midpoint.
Sean Bree.
Yes, over there, Jim.
According to this, she doesn't have a PhD. So my question is, when she gets the PhD, she's a PhD candidate? Does it
We're not going to
change?
make an adjustment.
Okay. And then I'm looking for an opening to ask this question, and you gave a head count for Title I. Do we ever get a head count for the entire SVSU?
Of positions and,
A generic head count of exempt, non-exempt, contract, 1099s? I don't know.
we can, I know in my.
I think on a monthly basis, that would be good
On a
information
monthly?
for all the boards to have.
No, I don't know that we could do a monthly. I don't know. I'm
We
looking
could do a
at-
student
that would-
population,
Yeah.
similar to the student population, because I'm kind of shocked at all the,
How many
many people are
employees?
working here?
Yeah, we have a lot of
We
employees.
are the second
And
largest employer in the area.
I
Well,
don't think
I'd
you
like to
mean
see
just,
that, and-
yes.
because people
we can
keep saying it'd be nice to see
Yeah.
where it all is.
Actually, it would be good for each board to have a list of their employees
Right.
each year.
No,
We got one.
I'm not saying by name, I'm just saying, just a generic head count.
Sure.
So we'll work on that for the August meeting.
Yeah, Title I, exempt,
Well, I would say
non-exempt,
the September in case we have hires.
substitutes.
No, I don't care about it.
You know.
It'll go with the retreat.
Yeah, we can get that summary sheet.
Peter?
Can I just get a quick definition of poverty rate?
Of what?
I mean,
Poverty rate.
what does poverty rate mean?
How do you qualify for free and reduced lunch? What are the numbers?
Do you have the number, do you know offhand? Kate?
It's a high number.
It's based on, these numbers are based off the number of applications that are eligible for free and reduced lunch in each of the districts. The formula, I didn't look up the latest one before I came, I should have.
So in other
Karen's
words,
going to look
it
on the
doesn't,
computer.
it doesn't
It's a
necessarily,
percentage of.
it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the number. In other words, typically at the middle school and the high school,
It's
you have
greater.
less applications
Right.
for free and reduced lunch. So they don't really get, so that even though they may qualify,
They don't fill
they
out
haven't submitted
applications.
anything for us to count them.
Right.
But you're asking what qualifies for free and reduced lunch.
What the definition of poverty rate itself is.
It's
Karen's
some-
looking.
It's some percentage above the Fed. I don't off the top of my head.
Something like 21,000 for a
25.
house of, household
Yeah,
of
it goes by
4.
households.
Larry?
Number.
A little different avenue. Tell us the current employment status of Dawn Campbell. There was a recent article in the paper in Dawn.
Yes, I
reported that
can.
It sounded like she has left our employment. I was aware that.
I'm going to ask you to
Well, yeah,
just hold
that's-
that till we do the consent agenda, then that can be the next question. How's that?
Okay.
Is that okay? So we can, can we go ahead and make a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ray?
So how did you come up with the figure for Donna's salary?
I used the midpoint between 71 and 102, and did a one midpoint above that.
So this board
So-
set a range.
Several years
So
ago.
you
This
split
range
it,
actually
and then you
was
split
set,
that split.
yeah, the range was set, oh gosh, 3 or 4 years ago.
I had the minutes with me, but
Yeah.
so there's a motion and a second on the
And
floor.
this isn't a negotiation, this is something you just set?
I set it by years' experience, position, and
But there's no
bargaining unit.
contract, there's no bargained contract
No.
that says this. Right. It's not part of the administrator's contract.
No.
No.
The principals.
no.
No. So is there any other questions on the consent agenda? So who made it and who, I just want to repeat for Richard. It was George and Jim. Any other discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda? Opposed? So, Richard, that was everybody in favor except Larry and Fran, and no abstentions. Now, your question about Dawn Campbell,
First of all, I tied that to the consent agenda because there was a resignation in the packet. That
from Dawn?
person resigning went directly to the BVSU.
I'm really sorry. You know what, I didn't see it listed under resignations. I didn't see Dawn's.
She has not,
No, this is Mazzola.
yes.
My question was, is Dawn left our employment? And has she gone to Hill Valley? And is she recruiting our employees?
What I can tell you is that the position.
I got you now. I'm a little slow tonight,
Yeah,
sorry.
the position that she was filling was part of a reduction in force. She was offered, because of her seniority, she's been offered a position here. In the meantime, before she got her assignment, she was hired in Arlington. People are very pleased that she has the opportunity to be a full-time director of special education in Arlington, but she and I are still discussing her RIF status, a reduction in force status, and I can give a report at the next meeting on that. So she has yet to take an action. You know, she's informed us that she's going to be employed there, but she has not submitted a resignation letter here yet. But she and I are discussing that in relation to the reduction in force. Because as you all remember, a reduction in force allows you to remain on a recall list. So she and I will be discussing it. And I apologize, Dawn, that I'm discussing this as I am. But I think because it's part of a reduction in force, it's been in the paper that she's been appointed in Arlington, that it would not be executive session material.
Well, I guess I'll ask that technical question later, which, well, I guess I'll ask it now. So can you I guess you technically forget about a single person, but any one person who is RIF'd and on a recall list can work in a different job while they're on the recall list, right?
Yes.
It's coming to me now. Okay. So, where are we?
But I'll follow up, Larry, at the next meeting.
So there is no chair's report, but I actually made one anyway in the beginning, and we have a meeting on Wednesday. It will be the State of the District Part 2, and we do need an executive session for a number of items, and I am going to be mindful of the clock, that we are done by 9:20 of 9, George?
Fine.
Tara?
We missed public comment.
We didn't, they did.
Right.
I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
You're
I
right.
was 4 minutes late, so I didn't want to, is it possible
Sure.
for me to? Okay. I just had a question about the bullying policy, which, as per the website, is not the most current bullying policy that should be on there. And just personally, I've had significant issues in this way at this middle school with staff and students in bullying issues this year. Complaints to administration at this school have gotten nowhere. And I've had to go to Secretary Villaseca to ask why that is. Response from legal, from their end, has indicated that there is in fact they delivered an entirely different message than I was delivered. So I'm concerned, and I think the board, the SVSU board, is exactly where this has to be spoken about, because...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. The policy committee has revised the bullying policy to the policy issued by the state, and it's making its rounds through the approval process. So that's what happens. So what happens is that a policy goes for revision to the policy committee, and then that committee sends it out for warning at each of the boards. And then sometimes the boards have questions or revisions, and then it has to go back to the policy committee, then come out again. And then, I'm sure your question is, why not just adopt the...
Nope.
No? Okay, I missed.
I totally get that.
And then it's going for approval, so
My
that's...
only problem with that statement then is that it was stated by the person at the Human Rights Commission that in fact Secretary Villaseca had informed, and she sent me the copy of the model bullying policy that was sent to all superintendents of all supervisory unions, that policy had to be in place by January of this year, period. So that's the running policy. And it's a concern of mine that this entire board hasn't adopted that yet.
I'll check on where it is in the approval process, because we want to make sure it's in the handbooks for next year.
But it's my understanding that it's supposed to already be the running policy if boards haven't already adopted it.
It was January. And in fact, I would be thrilled if this board and all of our boards would accept the model policies. But we're independent Vermonters, and even though we have a Vermont School Boards Association and the Agency for Education, we feel like we have to put our personal stamp on everything that comes through, and then it goes through every board. We could have just adopted it.
Well, we have to go...
Well, it is still running law now, like even if it hasn't been adopted.
The policy committee has it for when, I'll make sure that we look at it where it is for Wednesday's
So I just have to
meeting.
say this, though. Parents, and I'm not the only one who's had bullying issues in this school this year. Something just happened
But they
last night.
should-
It's on Facebook. And it's my concern that this school, specifically this school, and again, I don't know if it's other schools, has not responded to parents filing complaints, verbally or otherwise, or in writing, to students that have been bullied in this school. And
Tara, that's my responsibility to work with the principal. I'm not shutting you off about it. I appreciate knowing the concern, but I need to check that out with the principal and review that policy.
Okay, well, it's just my...
Yeah,
I
I
want them to know
understand,
that
I
the principal
understand.
informed
I'll check it out with
the
him.
legal department of the AOE that the bullying policy is in fact up to date, and they have investigated the matter, and it did not happen.
Okay, I will check that out.
Jim,
one statement, policy isn't statute, so there's law and there's policy.
Right, that's true.
Okay, so I just want to be careful when we discuss.
We're following the statute and we're
Right,
adopting
thank you.
policy.
You're right.
There's
That
a
is
fine
correct.
line between the two of them.
Right,
Right.
so they wanted us to adopt a model policy.
The statute requires policy.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Karen?
Different topic?
Sure, under other?
No, I found the information for Peter.
Ah,
Is that okay?
yes.
So, this is based on FY 2012. I probably could have searched further, but basically, the U.S. Department of Agriculture sets the family size and income guidelines. So children who are at or below 130% of the federal poverty level are eligible for free hot lunch. Children between 130 and 185 of the federal poverty level are for reduced hot lunch, and that whole group is what makes the poverty.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yep.
Okay.
And I have
Yeah.
Mark has another.
I want to go
and then
back to the bullying. Is it possible to have that conversation with this administrator and update us at next Wednesday's meeting on what's going on here?
To have a discussion about the poverty?
No, about the bullying.
The bullying.
Oh, yes, sure.
Several concerns here, so I would hope that we would be able to have that conversation again on an update on what is going on here.
Right, but we're not going to have a conversation, we're going to have an update. I mean,
Update.
Yeah, an
Correct.
update, right. Yeah, I wrote it down on the task list. I did.
Excuse me?
Yes.
That's what Mark is asking.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
5 days from now,
Right.
or 6 days from now.
Sure. And then I had another.
Yes.
I just think for those of you that either watched or attended the high school graduation this year or the grade 6 celebrations at the elementary schools or the 8th grade celebration here at the middle school, just a fabulous time of year to really celebrate the good work of teachers, students, the support that families and the faculty and administration and support staff give our students. And it's very important to make sure that we take a moment and just recognize that. And they were for the ones I was able to attend, wonderful celebrations, as I know they were where I was not able to attend.
Fran, wait, is it something new?
No.
Is it about teacher negotiations?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can you just hit the play button?
What do you mean, hit the play?
I think I can give an update. We're ready. Go ahead, Fran.
Well, I wanted to make my motion because I made sure that I had the motion the way it's supposed to be. Shasberry's already voted on it, so.
Okay, so.
If
but-
I may,
Okay, I'm just going to say that the information that Jim had asked for is being put together for our
It's
regular
almost ready.
meeting on the
Right.
26th.
yeah, and I've talked with him. He knows that. I said Catherine was getting that and she checked with Steve Stitzel. But anyway, can I go on with my motion?
Sure.
Okay. Seeing as how we have the teacher negotiations coming at the end of, this year or early January, so Jim had asked for this basically, so I'm going to make a motion to move that all negotiation sessions for the new teacher collective bargaining agreement take place in open session. And with that, myself, I would be open, to stepping aside, going in with having a new teams, and I think it'll leave a lot of the old baggage behind, and I think the Bennington County deserves this. I mean, these strikes are wearing on communities at best, and I just think that, and we used to have have a simplified binding negotiation process. It's something like Rick had, I don't know, years ago we had done, and I don't know. So anyway, that's the motion.
So say it again for Richard.
Okay. Move that all negotiation sessions for the new teacher collective bargaining agreement take place in open session.
Is there a second?
Second.
That's Peter. Discussion? All in favor? Okay, so that's Larry, George, Jim, Peter, Fran. Opposed? 1.
Abstention. doesn't apply to
Oh, they're
Woodford.
abstaining, and you're abstaining.
Abstain.
Opposed? 1. Abstentions? 3. Okay, so the motion passed.
Thank you.
The information will still come forward about the legality
I'm not sure
and
it
who
passed.
has to, excuse me?
I'm not sure it passed.
It did
Both
pass.
sides have to agree.
There's 5 in favor.
Oh,
There's a quorum,
with the,
there's a quorum of 10 here.
No, of those voting,
It's of those voting?
of those voting. So what was it, 5?
yes.
5 to 1.
5.
An abstention isn't really a vote.
Well, they can't, they're not party to it,
Right.
so
They're not in the,
none of them.
they could step out of the room too because they're not part of the.
Right.
Would you like to step out of
Under
the
the
room?
rule, the abstention carry with the majority?
Well,
I don't
always-
have my Robert's rules with me.
That's what I understood.
this is
Maybe
the
I'm
point
mistaken.
that Rick is
But it
making.
really doesn't make that much difference at this point.
Okay. I believe it's of those voting.
Well, it's also majority. You have to have a
we will bring it back. This
quorum, right?
Right.
1, 2, 3.
You
So
do.
that would be
You have a majority of them.
6, yeah, because it would be 6 and 5, 5 or 6.
Oh, we move it. Yeah, we'll see, we have to see it right after this. Yep. Don't leave without her doing that.
Vote, vote, vote. Vote, majority vote, motions. Table A, B, C, and D.
That's only condensed version. It's the condensed version that this.
When one seeks the floor, or when one motion is made, voting by voice, counted. Well, this says that the question is on the adoption of those in favor of the motion will rise and those opposed, blah, blah, blah. Those in the majority, I know it's usually in statute that I've seen. So I will look at this while we're in executive session, but I believe the motion passed. So can we have a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
All in favor? It's unanimous. It's on this page. Now, do you want us to go in and come out?